you tell I'm in denial?
You can't stay at the top forever.
I was also very surprised when I looked at my phone and saw Joe Girardi dismissed.
Well, I think mine were with common sense.
I think now belongs in the all-time greats top 10.
Boston, I really think only got to this point because of a guy named Chris Middleton being out for the Bucks.
That power play just was unbearable. It was humming.
Man, am I happy. I knew that this was going to happen. I knew he was going to come back.
When I think of New York Yankees now is Judge, probably people in the past when Jeter was coming up.
I would be shocked. A little bit hurt.
Hey, this is Greg Tepper of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, TexasFootball.com, and Valley Sports Southwest. You are listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NBA Opinions of the Week. That's my bad. I'm Kevin, and I am joined by Austin, the man that knows places or players, in this case, since we're talking about top 10 six-man for the NBA.
Yeah. This list took me a little bit longer than I thought it would have, because off the top of my head, I'm like, oh, these are definitely the best six-man. But then I realized there's veterans that are going to be six-man for the first time of their career. And there's guys that are young and will they get better? So I'll go first here. My number 10, Caleb Martin. He was very, very big on that Heat playoff run. And if the Heat are going to be good, he will have to be good. He's dealt with some injuries to start the year, and he only had 2 points in his first game, but that's not going to change my mind. When he's 100%, I do think he's a top 10 six-man in the league.
That's a good one. Yeah, like I was saying before, my bottom five for six-man, I was like, especially now, I'm like, are these guys going to start? These are some young guys. I could really come up with like 3 six-men that I could think of. One guy, I was like, oh, he's starting. I used some website for lineups to see the lineups and the starting five, and I was like, oh, he's starting, so I guess he's not on here. I didn't put him on here, and it may change throughout the year. So my 10 is Killian Hayes with the Pistons. I think he can be a good off-the-bench guy. He could be a top 10 six-man.
Wow, that's contentious. I don't know if you know any Pistons fans like I do, but they're not the biggest Killian Hayes fans.
Okay.
But he could always turn it around. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I remember when the Mavs could trade for him. I liked him. I liked the potential, but this one was a list. It was hard for me to get to 10. I'll go into 9 for me. Christian Braun, for the Denver Nuggets. I think he's a guy we're both high on. He had his rookie year. He filled in a lot. I think he becomes that six-man role and a key guy off the bench.
Yeah, I was very close to including Brown, but usually this is how I do my list. I normally don't just do 10. I usually do like 15 or 20, and then I weed it out. Okay, this guy's better than this guy. Okay, and he would have probably been 11 or 12, but he just didn't make the cut. Mine at number 9 is Norman Powell, a very good scoring guard, plays for the Clippers. He won't start, obviously, because they have Russ there. So he's been good the past couple of years. He had kind of a down year last year, but I still think he's very, very important to this Clippers team that needs offensive production whenever Paul George or Kawhi are out.
Yeah, that's a really good pick. He's been a guy, and yeah, six-man. I just consider this the first guy I'm going to pull off the bench, and my 8 is Bruce Brown.
Yeah, Bruce Brown was the other one that just missed the list. So both of the former Nugget or current Nugget Brown missed my list. My number 8 is Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas scored 36 points in his first game this season. And he obviously had a lot of big stretches last year of scoring 40 points in, I think, 3 straight games. And he averaged a lot of points whenever he's in. He's a pure scorer. He can't do much other besides that. But when you can come off the bench and give a team 30 consistently on good splits, I think you're worth that. And I think he's going to get a lot of run this year. I know I picked him up on my fantasy basketball team, Kevin. I don't know if you did, but I feel like it's going to be a valuable piece to this Brooklyn Nets team.
Yeah, that would have been a good pickup. Yeah, It's already 2 days in. And I'm struggling to remember to do fantasy lineups, so never done it before. We'll see. But yeah, that's a good pick. I have him a little bit higher. Who's your 7?
My number 7 is Emmanuel Quickly. This may seem a little bit low to some people, but I feel like the amount that has changed within the people who are 6-man, as you'll see quickly in my list. But Quickly's very good. He's not even the highest 6-man on my team, so I was really like, is this guy a 6-man? Because I didn't see him as the best bench option. So I'll let you go to yours, and then I'll go to mine.
Okay, I'm a little bit higher. We'll get to that because we'll talk about the multiple 6-men because I try to stick to one team. My 7 is Brandon Clark for the Memphis Grizzlies. He's a guy that I think could provide a nice role. Marcus Smart to me, I think is going to be a starter. But he's going to start a lot because of Ja being out. So I think Brandon Clark provides a really nice role defensively.
Yeah, and Brandon Clark's injury last year definitely really hampered this team, along with Steven Adams. So that's definitely a really good one. He's an impactful player. He didn't make my list, but I can't blame you for making that pick. But my number 6, same team, Josh Hart. When I saw Josh Hart and Emmanuel Quickly, same team, they have completely different roles, but they're both essential to this team. The Knicks are a very deep team, and that's what I like. I like Isaiah Hartenstein off the bench too. So when you can get these very good impact players that only play 20, 25 minutes instead of the 30 minutes you'd see from a starter, it can be very, very helpful. So I wanted to include Josh Hart on this list and Emmanuel Quickly, and I totally understand if you just wanted to have one-on-one team, but I feel like they both impact the game so much that they deserve their own spot.
Yeah, I almost had Josh Hart, but I felt I'm more confident in Quickly. However, Josh Hart is a great player off the bench and to the depth of the Knicks. That's a great point that you made. So I just felt, but I think in years past they've had two. Like, what didn't the Clippers? Wasn't it between Lou Williams and Harrell? Or am I thinking?
That's true. Yes, that is true.
But I understand having two. I just wanted to stick with one. But
Yeah,
Josh
it's not unheard of to have 2 6-man be contenders for the award.
And then, so my 6 is Tim Hardaway Jr. I think he's really just a good scorer, and this is probably coming off game 1. I saw the first half with the Mavs. He just really came out and was hot. To me, that's what, if they're 6-man, I can have a great defensive player, but a guy that can just score, I think, is great off the bench. And that's just one thing I think Tim Hardaway can do. He can lead that second unit and just be that scorer.
Okay, who's your next player?
My next player, so we're at 5, and that's Cam Thomas. You talked about the scoring. I just think the level of scoring he can do, and there's more potential here than Tim Hardaway. To me, is just a guy that can shoot. Thomas, I think, can just dribble, get a bucket, and he scored more than Tim Hardaway did last year, or there weren't so many highs, as you mentioned, Thomas, before. So I think it's a really key thing. He could come off this list because maybe they start starting him.
Yeah, I do think that's a possibility on some people on my list as well. My number 5 is Gary Trent Jr. So Toronto is now not starting Gary Trent, who averaged 17 points, I believe, last year. Let me just fact check that. Yeah, 17 points last year and 18 points the year before that. So he's been amazing for them. But they really do go away from guards. And even though he is 6'4", it says 6'5" on Basketball Reference, but I think that's generous. I'd probably say like 6'4", and he's a shooting guard / small forward. But because of how they run the team with so many power forwards, so many large players, it really does squeeze him out of the starting 5. So for this year, because they're going to start Schroeder at point guard, Gary Trent Jr. could be amazing off the bench. I could really see him having a 6-man of the year caliber year.
Yeah, he's someone I kind of think similar with Tim Hardaway. But yeah, it's a really good pick. I'll let you do your 4.
Yeah. So my number 4 is Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon is not starting with Portland, which I found very weird. If we did this list before the year started, I would not have had Brogdon here because I didn't think they're going to start Scoot day one. But they're starting Scoot day one, and Brogdon still put up 20 points off the bench. He was the most efficient scorer, their best scorer, honestly, and he was very impactful for that game. Anthony Simons is still a better player, so he definitely shouldn't start in the point guard position, or that one guard position. But I thought he would start up for Scoot, but he's still a great bench piece, and I think he is definitely one of the finalists for Sixth Man of the Year.
He is a great player, and he is not on my list because of the injuries. I'm a little scared off by the injuries. I don't know if he's going to play a full season, but we'll have to see. So my 4 is this one, maybe a shocker, Malik Monk with the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, because of his defensive deficiencies, I didn't have him on this list. Like when you go to Gary Trent Jr., I know he's a scorer, but last year he averaged 1.6 steals, and the year before that he averaged 1.7 steals. Those are almost 2 steals a game. You're not going to get that with Monk. And I feel like Monk some games could drop 40, and some games could literally give you 0 points. So his volatility kept him off of my list.
Yeah, and I think that kind of fits because there have been moments after, like, Cam Thomas, after those, like, 3 40-point games, then he struggled. Tim Hardaway can be a streaky guy, too. So, really, the 4, 5, and 6 are guys that can get streaky, get me points, but they're not consistent, so that's why they're not a starter. But with the other 3, my top 3, I think they provide value always. So I think I can go right into it. Chris Paul's my 3. I saw he's not starting. He is my pick for Sixth Man of the Year. He's just a great role player, and I think him getting less minutes is going to be helpful. While he may not be shooting well, as we saw with the Suns in the last few games before he left or was traded, he can still provide value with passing and getting others involved.
Yeah, that's a great point. He's higher up on my list, so I'll mention my little spiel about him whenever we get to him. But for me, number 3 is Bobby Portis. Portis averaged 10 rebounds a game last year on a Bucks team that was trying to contend for a championship. His injury definitely harmed them, and now that they have Dame, he's probably definitely not going to be in the starting lineup. But his impact, giving them 14 and 10 off the bench last year consistently, and I think he could do it again, is you can't explain how important that is to a team. To have a guy on the bench that you could put in for 25, 28 minutes and give you 14 and 10 consistently.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I'll get to him, so I'll add a little bit more. My 2 is Emmanuel Quickly.
Okay.
I think his potential is rising, and he, I think, provides a lot of value defensively, and offensively. I think he can develop more. But to me, he's always going to give me something off the bench. That's what this top 3 does. And then number 1 is Bobby Portis. I'll go right into it because I said I had him higher. He's above these 2, Quickly and Paul, because I could see both of those guys going to the starting lineup. Portis, to me, is always going to be on the bench, and I think he serves a lot of roles. Defensively, you mentioned his stats. He's always going to be involved, and he's going to be a key contributor in the final. And I'm not sure if that takes him out of the 6 man, but to me, he's a guy I can go to, okay, I need you here. And there's no way to me, unless an injury happens, that he starts. He knows his role.
Yeah, he knows his role is a great point because I do think there's a lot of non-starters in the league or even starters that don't get as many shots up that don't, and that could be very harmful to their team. So I will give Thibodeau credit for helping Quickly understand his role and being consistent with that. My number 2 is a guy that you don't even have on your list is Al Horford. Horford did not start game 1. Derek White started, which I did not anticipate. Derek White would have been on this list if Al Horford wasn't. So one of those 2 was going to be on this list because one was going to start and the other one was going to be on the bench. But Horford is so important. He is arguably, outside of Tatum, the most important player on the team because of his defensive responsibility. Last year in the second round against the Sixers, his defensive responsibility was Joel Embiid, and he excelled. Game 7, he locked up Joel Embiid. That cannot be understated at his age. With him shooting as well as he has been the past couple of years from 3, his value is through the roof. And I think he deserves to play more minutes than Derek White. I think he's better. And him being on the bench is a crazy thing for me. As long as he's playing at the end of games, though, it doesn't really matter, I guess. But I definitely think he deserves to be on the court when the times are the roughest. And then my number one, I said I had him higher than you, Chris Paul. What's crazy about Chris Paul is that he has never came off the bench once, not even once in his career. 12-15 of 12-15 he started. And that includes his first game in Golden State because of Draymond being out. So eventually this season we will see Chris Paul play his first game on the bench or starting on the bench. And I do agree with you. I think he wins Sixth Man of the Year. Not necessarily because he has the best six-man stats. If we were going based on purely stats, I'd probably have Bobby Portis. But impact, which I do think matters, his impact to this Golden State Warriors team will be evident quickly. And he will definitely do all that's necessary to help this team win as many games as possible.
That's a good pick. Yeah, I had a feeling we'd flip-flop on Portis and Paul. And then to Horford, yeah, I just completely forgot. I forget KP's basically playing center now, and the forward is Tatum. Then you have Brown, and then
Holiday and White technically next, and Holiday.
Yeah, so yeah, I just completely missed it. He is a great pick. I wish I would add him to my list, but he'd be higher. Just because, yeah, he's a great player, and just my thought of him, I view him as a starter. But with
I don't blame you at all.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to start this year. I thought that they were going to have KP start at the 4, but it doesn't seem like they're going to do that.
Yeah, and it seems like they're going to bring White off the bench. I love White, and he would have been on this list, but I saw he was starting, so I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, I just completely forgot about Horford, so that's why he's not on my list.
Sounds good.
But yeah, that's all we got, and I'll let you close it out.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Who's your favorite six man? Who did we miss? And thank you guys for listening.